everyone! Today I am going to be going over the books I read in the month of July, which happens to be the books that I finished for Booktubathon. So this is my July wrap-up and Booktubathon wrap-up. I read a total of 4 books, which is not bad for the month, but the fact that I read it in the span of like 4 days is pretty darn impressive in my opinion. Let's get started. The first book that I finished for Booktubathon is Lakhan by John Scalzi. I found this very interesting book to read. I rated this a 3.5 out of 5 stars, mostly because I thought it was very much an like expository writing rather than any kind of actions and stuff like that. There was a lot of talking and discussing things, which is something I found a bit odd for the type of book this is. In this book, we live in a world where there are people who have suffered an illness that is sort of like meningitis, and eventually some of these people are locked into their own bodies. They are mentally aware but not physically able to move. And there are some people that have gotten sick and have been fine afterwards with like a little bit of brain alterations. And in the society that these people live in, technologies created so that people who are locked in can use other people's bodies as integrators, as well as androids or people transportation devices. So that was pretty interesting. The main character is a Hayden, as they call him. They call it the sickness Hayden syndrome, and people affected are called Haydens. He is a newly FBI agent, and he, goes throughout his first week on the job with this mysterious case that involves other Haydens and possible crimes and stuff. Like I said, a lot of the book was a lot of explanation of things, a lot of talking points, discussions, like, well, what do you think happened? And, blah, blah, blah. And the ending was pretty lackluster. It kind of was like there was a plan that was formulated off page and then happened. Also, I think this book could have done a better job representing LGBT and diversity, because there was that present in this book, but it was just there. Like, the main character is African American, and I found that out because his dad is African American, and they went through, something happened, and they're like, well, they're just gonna see this big black angry man. So that was the only indication that the main character was black. And of course there are LGBT representations. There was a couple that was LGBT. The main character's partner, I suspect, is LGBT, either lesbian or bisexual. So I think it could have done a better job, like, just stating that. Be like, hey, it's in here. And I recently found out that there's gonna be a sequel to this, so that'll be interesting. The next book I read was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars, just because I found it really boring to read. I really liked the movie a lot better than the book, and the book had a different ending than the movie. I guess, I don't know if there's gonna be spoilers. I mean, this book was written in 1905. And the movie's been out since the 90s. It's just a lot different. I found it very interesting of how much the word queer was used in this book, and I know it was used a lot to say weird back in the day. But I found this, I just was really bored with this, and I just powered through it. It was an okay read, which is why I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was Homegoing by Ya Jessie, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars because I could find nothing wrong with this book. Nothing. It was a very enjoyable read, and I liked it a lot. This is a generational book where each chapter goes through each generation of 2. It starts off with 2 half-sisters who've never met, and their descendants. So one is a One of the sisters ends up marrying a white man who was a governor of the Cape Coast Castle in Ghana, and her children stay in Africa for the most part, and her half-sister ends up being sold into slavery and travel across the sea to America. And yeah. I loved seeing the history of the things that have happened. Like, I'm very familiar with the American slavery stuff. I learned about that when I lived in the States so long ago, and I was really interested to see what life was like in Ghana with you know, British colonization and fighting for independence from the eyes and perspectives of like the people who lived there. And I like the fact that most of these characters were flawed. Their stories were very interesting to read, and not everyone's life was perfect, and I like that about this book. Definitely will love to see what Yajasi writes in the future. The last book I finished, and I only had 998 pages to read for this, is I finally finished Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which I am, for now, giving a 3.5 out of 5, with a disclaimer that should I reread this book, it'll probably get a higher rating. It's just the fact that I started this book initially back in November, and again a couple months ago, and then again here, and it was kind of staggered, and so your reading experience does get affected in that way. I enjoyed this book for the most part. I really enjoyed getting to know the characters and what kind of people they are, and Cass Brecker and what kind of person he is, because I found his character really interesting. I found the ending to be a bit odd because there were some realizations about characters that was just thrown out there. And I don't know if that was for shock value or whatnot, but I don't know when I'm going to get to Crooked Kingdom. I'm not really gagging to read it right now, but I will eventually. I do have to mention one other book that I started to read for Booktubathon, and that was The Humans by Matt Haig, but I DNF'd the book after 143 pages because I was completely bored with it. This is supposed to be a dark comedy, and I was not finding it funny at all. I just wasn't enjoying myself, so I had to say, okay, I'm gonna put this down. I could pick it up in the future, I don't know, but for now, yeah, DNFing, sorry. Those were the books that I read for the month of July / Booktubathon. I had a really fun time. It was a shame that I didn't get to do as much reading in the last couple days. I had a rough couple days at work, and so that kind of affected my mood and my reading, but yeah, there's that. I didn't buy any books this month, but I did receive 2 books from a friend who was getting rid of some books, and I thought I would share them with you. The first one is the Mammoth Book of Vampire Stories by Women, which looks like that, which is all vampire stories written by women, which I think is phenomenal. You have like Anne Rice, Tanith Lee, Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough. There's even Frida Warrington is in this book, which I've read a book of hers earlier this year. It seems like an older book. Yeah, the copyright says that it was produced in 2001, so yeah, that's interesting. And then I have a big massive book of 4 books in one by James Herbert, and these is a horror genre, which I've never really read that much horror. It has the books Moon, Shrine, The Dark, and Fluke in it, and it has a creepy little girl on the front cover. And it says it's complete and unabridged, which honestly, I don't know what the purpose of having abridged works are. Like, why do books need to be abridged? It just doesn't make any sense. But also, the words are tiny in here, so it's a lot. Like, these are tiny words. That's all for me for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you did for Booktubathon. I know a lot of people did really well. I had a lot of fun for the most part, reading as much as I did, and I can't wait for Booktubathon for next year. Maybe I'll even participate in the holiday Booktubathon this Christmas. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!